That's a funky microphone. The cake is ready. If you want to come up and get cake, now is the time. And also, now is the time for the fun to begin. You all know Carl and Doris, but I think after tonight, you might see another side of them. I have asked some of their closest friends and some family members to share some of their stories that they come up with, some of the events that they had together. So they all agreed to say a few things this evening. It's their 50th anniversary. We're here to celebrate their golden year. And when you first say that 50th anniversary, it doesn't sound all that long, does it? But the more you say it, the longer it sounds. 50th anniversary. 50th anniversary. 50th anniversary. Man, that's a long time. But just to help you put that into perspective, I have a few facts from 1959. First off, you've been married since 1959. Do you realize that you were married through the terms of 10 presidents? Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Clinton, George W. Bush, and now Obama. So you've been married a long time. One of the big movies in 1959 was Ben-Hur with Charlton Heston. I think probably some of our younger folks would have never even heard from that. One of the top TV shows at the time was Bonanza.
Bonanza?
Alaska became the 49th state. Hawaii became the 50th state. Fidel Castro took power in Cuba in 1959. Mattel's Barbie doll was introduced to the public. Ladies' stockings were also introduced to the public. By a man, no doubt. It's true, it's no nonsense. Welcome to my world. Now you know what my wife puts up with all the time.
Yep.
The first astronauts, John Glenn and Aller Shepard, were introduced. Now these were kind of fun. Cost of living in 1959. Yearly inflation rate was 1.01. Average cost of a new house was $12,000, $400. Gallon of gas, 25 cents. Average cost of a new car, $2,200. A loaf of bread cost you 20 cents. A movie ticket would cost you $1. Cost of a stamp was 4 cents. Average yearly wage was $5,000. And for us at Carl Feathers, that hasn't changed. Ba-boom! Number one hit in 1959 for the year. Anybody have a guess?
No one. No.
Mac the Knife.
Oh, that was so
Number
close.
one hit in March of 1959.
Oh, that wasn't close.
That was Venus by Frankie Avalon. Number one country hit was Billy Bayou, Don't Take Your Love to Town by Johnny Cash, and White Lightning by Georgia Jones. Two notable births that you might recognize. One was Randy Travis, his country singer, and the other one was Jason Alexander of Seinfeld fame. But tonight we are going to be talking about love, marriage, relationships, and of course age. We have invited some of Carl's and Doris's closest friends and family to share some of their feelings and stories. And I must say, from this point on, I am not responsible for anything said or any stories told. So, with that being said, I'm going to ask Carl and Doris to come up front because we want everybody to be able to see them while we are talking about it. I need 2 chairs.
You want us to bring a chair?
Bring a chair.
We'll bring a chair.
Oh, yeah, we want you right up front. You are the golden couple. We want to be able to see you all night long. Our first guest for this evening is Mr. Denzel Valentine. Need me to hold anything, Hall?
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
A few months ago, Doug called me and told me about this evening's events. And he asked me if I would roast Carl. My mind fast forwarded, searching for anything that I could roast Carl for. Absolutely nothing crossed my mind. But being a man, I said, sure, I'll roast him. Tell me when to be there. Then it got here tonight. Doug says, oh, by the way, Denzel, you're going to be the first one up. Of course, he didn't tell me he was going to put Carl's daughters on singing some songs before he put me here. Thank you, Doug. Well, anyhow, so the days that followed that phone call, I had roast Carl, roast Carl. Now, I've known Carl for a lot of years, Carl and Doris. Our children grew up with theirs. Carl's a pretty nice guy. I couldn't think of anything that I could possibly roast him for. So I thought, and I thought, you know, we go to church together. Was there anything there? No. So next I thought, okay, we're in the Lions Club and we've been there for years. There's got to be something there. So I sat down in a chair and I searched and I searched. Well, I couldn't think of anything nasty to say about Carl or that would be interesting that you might want to chuckle about. But anyhow, at that point, I did what any intelligent man, husband does at that point. Hey, Patty, can you think of anything that we might roast Carl with? Well, she sort of come to the rescue a little bit. Patty said to me one day, she thought for a while and said, well, I can think of two inappropriate things, but I don't know if you can roast him for that. Now, you might wonder what two inappropriate things is that she was discussing. Actually, I was kind of wondering too what these two inappropriate things would be. Well, they're both in the church choir together, and they're in the handbell choir together. And the notes that Carl's plays is called B and C. And the notes that Patty plays is called FG. And Carl sort of thinks this is humorous when he can refer to Patty's bells as the F and G bells. The other thing she remembers was our church choir picnic. And we take turns having it at different people's houses. It was Patty and I's turn to have it at our house. Doug and Carl and myself, we were cooking some steaks out here on the outside of the garage, the patio being on the other side of the garage. Doug agreed to cook these steaks to order. So when he came in with the first tray, they were ones that was well, rare and medium. He brought the steaks onto the patio and he served them to everybody. And at that time, our Pastor Volker said, I should ask a blessing at this point. So he was there asking a blessing, doing a great job. And just as he said, amen, Carl come out through the door and said, well done. Of course, he had a plate of steaks that was well done. Well, anyway, Patty said, You know, we spent 16 or 17 days together on a little cruise with Carl and Doris and John and Rose Livingood. Said, surely some things happened there that you could talk about. And I sat down in my chair. There's a lot of things I could talk about. The first night on our trip, we spent in Venice. That morning, Carl and I was the first ones up. It was very early, and we happened to run into each other in the hotel lobby. We decided to go for an early morning walk until the other folks got up out of bed. Outside the hotel door, there was a little courtyard. And in this courtyard, there was a bronze statue. And it was of a very large lady standing on her tiptoes with her hands up in the air. Carl looked at me and he says, you know, we could use that for a homing point. All we have to do is look for this large lady and we can find her way back. By the way, this was a naked statue since we were in Venice. We started our trip. So on our walk we went, and it was rather interesting as we was walking around town, a lot of things to see. And after approximately a half hour we're walking around, Carl said, hey, if you happen to see a bathroom, I could use one. Now, of course, this is early in the morning. No place is open, no restaurants, no shops or anything. I said, I'll keep my eye open. And as we wandered around the streets, we finally decided, hey, everybody should be up by now, we better head back. So we started looking for our way back. Now, there's no streets in Venice. You have to go across little bridges to get from sidewalk to sidewalk. Needless to say, Carl and I was a little bit confused as to where we were. The other problem was, with all this water slapping up against the side of the buildings, making this noise, didn't help our situation out any with Carl. But anyhow, we started using our minds to try to find our way back. And after 15 minutes or so, we ended up into a small courtyard. And several streets left this courtyard. And Carl looked at me and says, you look up one street, and I'll look up another. And if we can see anything familiar, that's the way we'll go. So we started looking. Carl looked up one. I took my turn, looked up another one to save some time. Pretty soon, Carl turned around and he hollered, hey, Denzel, I see the naked fat lady. Well, needless to say, we were both relieved. But then later on that day, John and Rose and Carl and Doris and Patty and I walked to the famous St. Mark's Square, or San Marco as they say in Italian. And it's a big open courtyard. I would say probably the size of a couple of football fields, or maybe a little more. It has a cathedral, a tall bell tower, and it's got lots of pigeons on the ground, in the air, on the statues. Now, the entrances to this piazza were on four corners. We entered from one of the corners, from the furthest from the cathedral. Well, we're standing there sort of in awe and looking at everything. Needless to say, Rose was in her glory with all these birds running around. Carl took a couple steps over beside me and said, well, Denzel, I hope she don't find a dead one. We're going to have to try to take it home with us. You can ask Rose about that story. But anyhow, she took off walking among the pigeons. Now, John had his video camera with him, and of course, he headed off for the other end of the plaza. He wanted to get some pictures of the mosaics in the cathedral. Now, this was a very crowded, and more people were showing up as the time passed, or the minutes passed. Well, Carl, Doris, Patty, and I, we're still standing at the corner, right where we entered. just getting ready to take off to see the sights, when Carl walked over and he said, "You know, I think I could use the bathroom." But he said, "Won't be no problem. We passed one on the way in." We said, "Okay, we'll stand right here and wait for you." So the three of us waited for Carl's return. It seemed like more than enough time had passed and still no Carl. I told the girls just to stay where they were. You know, men have this instinct, they can find anything. And I said, "You girls just stay right where you are, and I'll go over to another corner. Maybe Carl will come in the wrong one and he might be over there looking for us." I said, "Okay," so I left. Doris said, "Now you know he has an orange shirt on." I said, "Okay, I'll look for an orange shirt." I walked across the park, got to the other corner, and I walked up steps, took the highest venue as I could get, looked all around. There wasn't anybody there in an orange shirt. By this time, Doris is getting a little worked up. I said, "Now where's my man at?"
Where's my man?
I mean, she's suggesting that we talk to people. I walked back over and Patty said, Doris is nervous. She wonders where Carl is. And I said, "Well, he'll be here." So Patty talked to her, calmed her down for the second. She said, "Well, maybe we should tell somebody that we're missing him." And I said, "Well, do we tell them we're missing Carl or we're missing a man in an orange shirt?" But anyhow, as we're discussing all this, looked around, and here Carl showed up. Carl walked up to us and he said, "You know, I think I got twisted around a little bit. But you're on vacation and there's no hurry to be any place." So we said, "No problem." And we started out across the piazza, and Carl was relieved. In more ways than one. Several days later, we were in Athens, Greece, and we were going with our tour guide to an ancient ruins of the city. The city was on a hillside, if you could picture this, and there was little buildings. There was a little building at the beginning of this tour, at the base of the hillside. The guide looked at us and said, "Now that if anybody needs to use the water closet," that's bathroom here, "to use it now, because the tour would take over an hour and there was no place along the way." Well, we looked the situation over, being men that we were. There was a pretty long line standing in front of the bathroom. And I said, "I think I can make it." And John said, "Well, I believe I can make it for the hour." Believe it or not, we looked at Carl and he said, "Oh, I can make it." Well, we all had our doubts, but okay. So we were on the tour, listening to the guide speaking to us in broken English. We're all concentrating on what the guide is telling us about ancient Greece and wishing we had paid more attention to ancient history in high school.
That was in Ephesus.
Okay. And we finally got a little over halfway on the tour, and Carl was leading us. Carl stopped and turned around and he said, "You know, I think I got to go to the bathroom." Now from our vantage point on this hill, we could see the end of our journey, which was down at the bottom of the hill. So rather than us going with Carl for support, we suggested he go down by himself and come back. Carl took off down over the hill. Walking down the hill, people's coming back up, and as you know, Carl, being a very courteous, "Excuse me, I'm sorry," sliding out of the way. Finally, he got out of the pathway, and he went on by himself, jumping over pillars and stones and that, and he made it through the trip. Got down and went to the bathroom. We waited. Carl showed back up to us. Well, a little further up the road, we could hear this really weird sound. The sound of an animal screaming. It was really loud. We're walking along, and Carl's in the lead. These are just small paths that you're walking on these tours. Carl was in the lead for us. We got pretty close, and the sound kept getting louder. We could see some people standing around our stone wall, gazing down into something. Carl said, "I'll go check it out." Okay? So Carl went over to the side, gazed down into it, and it was a large cistern with water, trees, dirt, and frogs. Really big frogs. Frogs with big voices. Carl gazed for a while and finally got the best of Doris. She said, "Well, Carl, what's making all the noise?" Carl looked around with his patented grin at his wife, and she said, "Well, Doris, them frogs are doing what we used to do pretty regularly 50 years ago." Needless to say, the rest of the group went up and checked things out just to make sure he knew what he was talking about. And sure enough, he did. Okay, and a few days later, we were in Naples, Italy, and we visited Pompeii, the city that was buried by ashes with the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. And it has been they uncovered the town in the last 100 years. This is the ruins of an ancient civilization 1,000 years ago. It was amazing how advanced their life was, except for their modesty. Now, you've all heard of community baths. Well, we saw the sights of the community baths.
Not me.
But did you know that they also had community toilets? Now, the thought of going to the site of community toilets kind of made Carl a little bit uneasy. Somebody, I think it was Doris, reminded Carl that the public community toilets were no longer in service. They're just here. Bring that picture here. They are just here for you to see how it was like. Okay. Now, just to substantiate my story, Carl and Doris can't see this, I brought a picture along. And as you can see, underneath us, these are all toilets. And then the row starts out this way, and it's another row of toilets. As you can see, there's Patty, John, Rose, Edsel, Doris, and there's Carl on the end. Now, if you haven't been believing me, check the picture out. Carl's the only one there with his legs crossed. Uh-oh.
That's a true story, isn't it?
Did I? Oh, I didn't get the right one. Okay.
That's the last page of your book.
Okay, this is it. Okay, and that's enough about that. But after we got back home here, I just want to end this story by telling you one little personal story. I have a friend that lived in Friends Cove. We'll call him Jim for the moment. That's actually his name. But anyhow, Jim lived in Friends Cove, and we were quite good friends since high school, and he was talking to me, and he said, "You know, I'd like to get a new house." And I said, "What do you want to get a new house for?" He said, "Well," I said, "the house we live in only has one bathroom." He said, "A car's run through it already, and a couple of them rolled in the yard." He said, "I think we've stretched our luck far enough living there." He said, "Besides, I have a growing son and his girlfriend, and they spend a lot of time there." But he said, "The big thing is, this house only has one bathroom." And he said, "It's kind of awkward trying to get around with just one bathroom." And I said, "Well, Jim, wouldn't it be cheaper just to build another bathroom rather than buy a whole new house?" "Yeah, but it's more than that." He said, "I'm looking for a change." And I said, "Oh, okay." Bing. Then it struck me. I have a friend that builds homes, and goodness knows he knows the importance of bathrooms. So I looked at Jim and I said, I got the perfect guy for you. I said, you go to him, he'll put you a new home up, and when you explain your situation with the bathroom, he is the one man that's going to understand what you're talking about. Well, that was a few months ago, and Carl sold Jim a house, and he lives happily on Carl Feather Arrowhead Acres. Okay?
After.
And that's the end of my story.
Blah, 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 blah.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to the bathroom now.
Why does he have to go? With all that bathroom talk?
Carl, do you need to take a break? You sure you can make it? Well, do you all know the difference between love, lust, and marriage? If you don't, I'm going to give you some examples. Love is when your eyes meet across the room. Lust is when your tongues meet across the room. Marriage is when your belt won't meet around your waist anymore, and you really don't care. Love is when you're interested in everything your partner does. Lust is when you're interested only in one thing. Marriage is when you're not interested in what your partner does, and the only thing you're interested in is your golf score. Love, when one steps out of the shower and the sparks of night of passion and romance. Lust, when one steps out of the shower and a spark 10 minutes of animalistic passion. Marriage, when Carl steps out of the shower and Doris says, hey, that reminds me, I need to add baby carrots and cherry tomatoes to my shopping list. With that note, our next guest will be Larry McCann. I hope we have longer than 9 o'clock.
Good evening, everyone. Congratulations, Carl and Doris. Like Denzel says, how can you roast somebody as nice as them? Carl's a great guy. Doris is a sweetheart. It's just hard to do. I can't really think of anything bad to say about him. Carl was so nice that when we play golf, I actually hate to take his money. Well, not really. I like to take his dollars every once in a while, but I pay him more than he pays me. Now, you probably all know how Doris loves to play golf. But I actually witnessed last fall, she quit. She gave up the game. I had been playing golf with Carl. Doris had been ahead of us. And we finished our 9 holes, came off, walked past the clubhouse down the downriver. Doris comes out of the clubhouse and says, Carl, I quit. And Carl paused, looked at her and said, gee, Doris, I was going to ask you to play 9 more holes. She says, okay. So she did quit 30 seconds. So something like that. And one thing probably you people don't know, actually, Carl's a check magnet. We were on a cruise. Carl and I were in a hot tub. Actually with Sam and John Livingood, and they got out. And these 2 really generous-sized women noticed that Carl was in that hot tub and said, ah, boy, I'm going after that boy. And they come over, and they actually blotted out the sun a little bit. But they got in the hot tub with us, and the water rose up, and poor Carl about choked. So actually, then Carl and I said, excuse us, ladies, I think we're going to leave. So actually, you know, Carl has it. like I say, it's just hard to say anything bad about such a great couple. I appreciate being here. I appreciate the friendship. I love them a lot. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Larry. Now, talking about marriage, you know, marriage is not a word. It's a sentence. It's a life sentence. If marriage is love and love is blind, then that means that marriage is an institution for the blind. And another word for marriage certificate is a work permit. And if love is a sweet dream, then marriage is the alarm clock. A couple things about husbands. It is said that a husband is living proof that a wife can take a joke. It is said that a bachelor is the only man who's never lied to his wife. And it is said that a bride is a woman with a fine prospect of happiness behind her. And I'm a little worried about our next guest. Like I said, I am not responsible for anything said here this evening. With that being said, Mr. John Bush is our next guest. It's too late now, you're stuck.
Man, you can't see a damn thing out here. There's nobody there. They all went home. Hi. You're worried? No. My wife told me I was supposed to be nice tonight. So I will be, basically. I've known you both for 20 years or more. I've known you longer, Carl, than Doris. I knew Carl back in our old volleyball days when Sam Foreman was doing his acrobatic trips on the rafters in the gym at the high school. Kate still hasn't killed him for that. Carl, I've never played with a golfer that has been more entertaining over the years. Every day ceases to amaze me. I've never met a man that could be 40 yards into the woods and still have a shot. It doesn't matter. Carl took the ultimate lesson in throwing a club. He only threw a club one time in his life. Number 17 at Downriver, threw his 3-wood up into the briar patch. When he came out, it looked like he had lost a fight with a cat. He was blood from his knees to his golf shoes. It was ugly. Absolutely ugly. I've also never played with a golfer before that can tee off and catch his tee ball. He is that quick. The man is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And another thing is, you can go to a golf course with Carl and he'll get you the best damn deal available. The senior citizen double discount rate, he always works the deal. He gets every deal. The deal when we were at the Bigler's house and all this noise was coming from your bedroom, you said you were fixing the sink. We never bought that. Never understood how that happened. Doris, like I said, when you and I first met, we didn't get along. In fact, we didn't really like each other at all. It took us a long time. But you know, I learned a few things. Never, ever, ever argue politics or religion with Doris. You can't win. But she did learn what a recondise is. The only complaint I have is you gotta stop calling Carl on the golf course. Not a good thing. He's making a lot of money on the golf course, but you gotta stop calling him. It disrupts his whole flow of things. And the other thing, when you go out to eat with Doris, chicken or crab cakes, that's all there is. There's nothing else on the menu. Yeah, no, you're not bored. I would like to say that I feel really privileged and honored to know you two people. You're probably, next to my wife, the nicest two people on the earth. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Now, you all know Doris. Some of you know her better than others. But I've come to know her as a very, very loving wife. Let me give you an example. Carl had a checkup at the doctor's a few weeks ago. And Doris, being the supportive wife, she said, "I'll go along." Well, she sat out in the waiting room and Carl went in to see the doctor. Carl was done, he came back out. But to Doris's surprise, the doctor said, "Doris, I'd like to see you." And of course, right away, knowing Doris, she never worries about anything. Anyway, she went back to see the doctor. And the doctor told her that Carl was suffering from a very, very severe stress disorder. And she said, if you do not do the following things, Carl possibly will die. He told her, now, each morning, you need to get up, the house needs to be quiet, and you need to fix Carl a very nutritious breakfast. He said that the meals are very important. Diet is very important. So every morning, fix him a nice breakfast. You have to be pleasant at all times, he said. There cannot be any stress at all. For lunch, just fix him a nice, easy meal, not too heavy. Keep the talk very light. Don't burden him with any chores. Carl can't be doing any chores. If you have problems of your own, if you're stressed out at all, if you got worries, don't tell him about it. Don't talk to him about that kind of thing. It'll only make things worse. And he said, no nagging. You can't nag him. There's no work chores for this man. Make love as often as he wants. It's the most relaxing thing for him. Make sure you give him lots of back rubs, because he likes back rubs. Anything relaxing. If you do this for the next 10 months to a year, Carl should be okay. Well, Doris is all worked up and worried, but they leave. On the way home, Carl looks over and said, well, what did actually the doctor want to talk to you about? And Doris had to say, honey, I'm sorry, but you're going to die. Our next guest this evening is Doug Evans.
Thank you, Doug. Congratulations.
You need to tell some stories about yourself.
They're more.
Can't do that. It's a pleasure to be up here and to celebrate Doris and Carl's 50th anniversary. I hope Lindsay and I make it that long. She's going to kill me tonight, I think. We've had a discussion about what I'm going to talk about, and you know, listening to Denzel and Larry, everybody just has a hard time coming up with anything to say really negative about Carl. Or Doris, for that matter, of course. Doris and Carl are wonderful hosts. They're great friends. They're a loving couple. They're the ultimate as far as you know, being the example of a great partnership in marriage. It's just tough to come up with anything. Carl is always truthful, sincere. So it reminded me of a story. Well, actually, this is a true thing, and I can only tell you it's true because Carl told me, so it has to be true. And we had been playing golf in King Valley, and it was my first time up there, and I think John was there, John Bush and myself and Carl, and I forget who the fourth was. And we go out up and we got to hole number 4 on the tee, and I was looking around, and I said, wow, this is really pretty up here. And Carl said, you know, I was raised around here. I said, wow, really? I said, yeah. He said, this is my grandmother's farm over in here and everything else. I said, wow, that's really amazing. It's really pretty up here. And I said, what's that little building over here? If you lived here, what's that building? And Carl goes, oh, he said, well, that building has special significance for me. I said, really? He said, well, yeah. He said, you know, when I was younger, of course, this is way before he met Doris, but so when I was younger, he said, I had my first experience with a female in there. I said, wow, really? I said, so what happened? He said, well, he said, we were in there and we were really having a good time, and all of a sudden the door opened up and her mother walked in. And I looked at Carl and I said, oh my goodness, what did she say? And Carl went, bah. And that is the true story that he told me. So it must be the truth, right? Carl wouldn't tell me a lie. Anyways, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation, and God bless you guys. You're a wonderful example of what, you know, a true partnership would be in marriage.
Thank you, Doug. Now, if you know Carl at all, you know he's pretty reserved. He doesn't talk a lot about himself. If he's sick or anything, you usually don't know it unless Doris tells you. But probably most of you didn't know that here not too long ago, Carl spent a few days in the hospital. Wasn't anything real serious, and I'll give you the details. Apparently, they were getting ready for bed one night, and Carl was already in bed. And Doris was standing in front of their full-length mirror in the bedroom, just taking a good, hard look at herself. You know, we all do that from time to time.
Not me.
It's scary, isn't it?
Is that true? Is that true?
And she said, Carl, you know, when I look in the mirror, I see an old woman. My face is wrinkled, my hair is thin, and I constantly got to go to the beauty shop and get my hair dyed. My shoulders slump over, it's hard to keep my posture. I got fat legs and my arms are all flabby. She turned to Carl and said, just tell me something positive so I feel better about myself. Well, Carl laid there in bed and studied for a moment, then says in the most softest tenderness voice he could muster, well, honey, there's nothing wrong with your eyesight. Pow! The ambulance was there 20 minutes later. And I think he is fully recovered. Our next guest this evening will be Eric Feather. He brought a laptop. We're all in trouble.
What? Yeah, it's a visual. Visual.
Do we need the lights out?
Yeah, actually.
Why do you care?
Can we have the lights turned out up here, please? I see people scattered. You need to talk from back there, or can you talk up here?
Well,
We have a cordless mic.
this up, I think. See how that.
We'll bring you the cordless down. Okay.
Okay, this isn't going to take that long. In fact, it's maybe just a little longer than Denzel's was earlier. But unlike Denzel, I was shocked to find out that he was told months ago about roasting Dad, and I found out last week. So, but I did prepare, as I was looking through some old pictures, I'm a visual person, so I was looking through old pictures of Mom and Dad and the family, and I came up with even some early pictures before I was ever around, and I came up with, I guess, my own version of events as I reacted to these old pictures. And, yeah, doesn't that figure? Hold on.
This could be Ken.
Somebody else should go. It's all visual.
PowerPoints. Doesn't look like PowerPoints.
Well, I don't have this one because I'm not getting my screen. I had it.
Good chance for everybody to get a drink. This doesn't make my love and marriage statement bad.
Now. Okay.
An epic tale.
Okay, now we're ready. Now I had started writing a few things down, but pretty much it's just going to be from the hip. So I wanted to share some images that'll help tell this epic love story of my parents, of my mom and dad. It's 50 years old, but it's an ongoing story, and a new page is written every day. So I'll try to do it some justice. Okay, so here they are during their 25th wedding anniversary. See, lots of love. And an impeccable stylistic taste, a fashion taste. I noticed too in my parents. And here's my adorable mother at a very early age. And she's a very happy little girl, as you can tell from the photo. And she was also a restless dreamer. And like most little girls in Claysburg, she dreamt of her Prince Charming, who would one day sweep her off her feet, a man who was stylish, good-looking, smart, and witty, a hero, someone like Tiger Woods. But of course, Tiger would not be born for several decades later, so she was going to have to settle for someone else. Carl Feather would be her knight in shining armor. And they both grew up in Claysburg, and it was tough times. Neither of the families had any money really to speak of. In fact, my pap, Dad's dad, was drafted into the Navy during World War II in his 30s, in his late 30s. And, but he made it through. He made it through those years. And so did Mom. And in fact, Mom grew to become a beautiful Claysburg cheerleader. A stunning beauty. And she turned many a young man's head as she would walk by. But there was one... I also had some music. There was one man who took special notice, and that young man was Carl Feather. He couldn't keep his eyes off her. It was love at first sight, and in fact, it felt like his heart was going to beat right out of his chest every time he saw her, like it had wings. And one thing he especially admired about this young, lovely woman was she still had her full set of teeth. And at that time in Claysburg, that was not a small thing. Most young women in Claysburg by that age had lost their teeth either due to just poor dental hygiene, poor diet, or chewing tobacco was another reason. But Mom managed to retain her pearly whites, so Dad was really impressed by that. And Mom kind of liked Dad too. He sort of looked like Roy Orbison a little bit, so, with fair hair. And she thought that was pretty cool. That's not bad. And Dad came up to her and said, "Hey, do you want to go outdoors?" And she looked at him and said, "Yeah, what the hell, why not?" And that's how it all started. And they had a powerful love, a passionate love. And they got married at an early age, and who's really to say why? I like to think that I like to think that it was just simply the power of love. And They got married in their teens. Mom hadn't even graduated, and you know, the power of love is such that it's not subject to mere conventions of society. So they got married very young, and times were tough. Here's a picture of them early on in their marriage, and it wasn't long, but in fact, you know, Dad went through a couple of jobs. He worked as a gas station attendant for a while, and in a short kind of 10-year span, along came 3 daughters, Jody, Tanya, and Felicity. And you can see they helped out there with taking care of Felicity. You can see her. She's well cared for. And Tanya has a broom in her hand. She's learning how to keep up the house. So they were a big help to my mom. And times were tough, and I came around a few years later. But the times were also good times. They were fun times. We found creative ways to enjoy ourselves. And Dad, we especially had a musically talented family. And Dad demonstrated that quite often. And you know, when we'd get together, sometimes Dad would pull out his guitar and he'd play the only 3 chords he knew. And that wonderful, delightful song, The Battle of New Orleans. Yeah. And it never got old. It never got old. Every time he sang it, we would all sing together. And really, I can't think of a better way to unify the family than to sing about one of the bloody battles of the War of 1812. And it was something that united us all, bonded us, not only in our love for music, but our hatred of the British. My dad was a fantastic father, and he did all kinds of things with me, sports, you know, throwing the baseball with me, sharing music, and also sharing our family's Native American heritage with me, and also his love of the village people, among other things. And Mom was an amazing mother. She took care of us, and actually these became then times of prosperity. My dad went into business with his brother Bob, got into the manufactured housing business. Not the trailer business. And that was always a sticking point with my parents. And in fact, for a while, we lived in a single sectional manufactured house in a manufactured housing park. And well, we eventually moved into a multi-sectional home. And but Dad was away at work a lot, so Mom took care of the kids, and she was a great disciplinarian, and again, her taste in fashion shows here. I could eventually stop wearing my sister's hand-me-downs, and we could afford a brand new suit for me. And it was stylish, and a bow tie. And I remember wearing this. I wore this at our graduation ceremony from primary school. I had this suit on, and I knew that we were at that time then a family of means and style and taste. And I knew that I could feel the looks and the stares from the people at that graduation ceremony, their eyes on me. And, you know, sure, I took some ribbing from some of the other students. You know, they picked on me a little bit, pushed me around. I had my head flushed in the toilet, I think, that day. But I knew it was because they were jealous. There's also a hat that goes with that outfit. And, but Mom was a good disciplinarian too. She kept us all in line, and she, you know, it was a gentle hand of discipline. And I remember if I do something wrong, she would say, "Don't do that, or I'm going to knock your teeth down your throat." It was her favorite expression growing up. And I heard that a lot, and I knew it wasn't an empty threat, because Dad had false teeth. For as long as I could remember, and I could only imagine what Dad did to incur Mom's wrath. And so it struck fear in me when she said that. I believed her. I'll knock your teeth down your throat. Anyway, it was a time of prosperity. And one of the things Dad always did is he had a new toy, whatever it might be, that he would get on a trade-in on a mobile home. And there were a lot of things that we enjoyed. One was a big tent. It looked like it was a red, white, and blue tent. Smelled like mold, and it took days to put up. It was something, I think, from the Civil War era. And it was red, white, and blue. Bright red, white, and blue. It was great. But some of the other things he got a nearly new motorcycle that he would parade around the neighborhood with pride, and I would proudly sit in the back, on the back seat of the seat with him. There was a Corvette with really not even a scratch on it that he enjoyed from a trade-in. And then probably the biggest, most prized possession was the motorhome. And we got a lot of use out of this motorhome. And we went on many trips together as a family. And in fact, I remember us going to the World's Fair one year. I think it was in Tennessee. But it wasn't quite complete. It wouldn't have been complete or feel like family without the Foremans, of course. And I didn't have a picture of Brian, so I substituted that. And sometimes then, too, Kathleen would come along. So it'd be 10 people in the motorhome in the sweltering hot southern heat. And it was really an experience. And in fact, about a few days into the trip, it would get pretty humid and stuffy in there, and you could start identifying people by their smell, really. And it took us a hell of a long time to get that smell out of there. But yeah, we enjoyed some good times. Oh, whoops. Anyway, the years went by, and 25 years later, there were my parents celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary. Now, we were a typical family from that era, from the 70s. And again, that fashion taste is evident here. And
John talking.
little background music. But Mom and Dad dressed like they're heroes, or what I felt were two of my cultural heroes at the time, who would also incidentally make a very cute couple, Barry Gibbs and Richard Simmons. Anyway, that's all I have, but what I do want to say is that even today, they still have that crazed look of love in their eyes. And I see it every time they're together. And I know that the passion is still there between them, because even today, Mom still refers to Dad as her tiger. So, thank you very much. Congratulations, Mom and Dad, and I love you both.
Can you imagine if he had a month? He did that in a week. I'd hate to see what he come up with in a month. Thanks a lot, Eric. We have the lights back on, please. Carl and Doris were discussing on how to celebrate their 50th anniversary, and Doris said, "Carl, let's run upstairs and make love." Well, Carl replied, "Make up your mind, woman, we can't do both." Carl had to tell her then, "Honey, I'm going to make you the happiest woman in the world." Doris replied, "I'll miss you." Our next guest tonight is Rita Bush.